Greetings! I, Tian Xia and Dracovin, your Lord and Emperor here at the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. I hope everybody's having a great day, whether, of course, you are joining me live on Twitch, or you're joining me later on YouTube. Hi, YouTube! Hope you're enjoying today, and I hope you can help me appease the great dark algorithms over on YouTube, and like, subscribe, ring the bell, and all that stuff. And my comment today is, have any of you dealt with the country of Linvarre, or as it was known until recently, Amanandar? Because we're going to be talking about a country that was formed by the Empire of Taldor in the heart of Tian Xia. It's one of the ones that we've known a lot about leading up to the, of course, Tian Xia book release. And we can chat about it. So, yeah. If you've known or encountered something, that's my comment for today. But, of course, as always, for all of these videos, when I get started, I'd like to say what books you should check out, and dive into those. I'll arrange myself for books. So, of course, hey, guess what? It's a part of the Taldor Empire, or it was until very recently. I mean, like, very, very recently. So, the Taldor, the First Empire book is a great place to start off with, of course, because of that early connections. The Dragon Empire's Gazetteer is also a good thing because, again, the connections with the Tian Xia and being in the continent. And, of course, the Tian Xia World Guide, the book that came out this year, is a great place to look for it because it does provide the input and the information that's updated because of the more recent changes of becoming independent. Alright, let's get started here. And this is Amanandar, where it is located on the map. So you can see here, it's in the center of Tian Xia. Interestingly enough, as you can see right here. Now, this is the same country that's going to, is the one as we're calling Linvarre. But its positioning is very interesting, being directly in the center of Tian Xia as a place that Taldor carved out. Let's talk about its history. So, how this country is not very old. That's a big thing to say about it. It is only about 100 years old. A little bit more than that. Just for the sake of it. Its history began in 4606. Keep in mind, the current year in Golarion is 4724. Basically, it's our current year, 24, and 47 in the front of it. Figure out the year that it is currently in the timeline of Golarion. I talked about this before, just reinventing it. So yeah, about 100 years ago, the 8th Army of Exploration from Taldor began this. This region had been another province of the Imperial Linvarre. With the fall of the Linvarre, chaos engulfed the region, as it did across much of Tian Xia. Basically, the big empire that had been a part of and ruling a lot of Tian Xia, not the entire continent, but a large chunk of the continent, broke apart. Unbeknownst to the people, this land would become Amanandar. Basically, months and months before this, on the opposite side of the Golarion, the 8th Army of Exploration, led by General Olirant Amanandar, set out in search of new lands. Basically, it's Taldor conquering things. They've been doing it for millennium at this point in time. It was another big push for reinvigorating their empire, which had been falling apart very rapidly at this point in time, despite the 8th Army of Exploration. You know, their mission was to obsessively in honor of the return of Eredin, but more specifically, it was an attempt to revitalize the falling nation. It's been declining at this point in time for centuries. They set out with an optimistic goal, and the unexpected demise of Eredin spawned terrible and destructive storms which battered the fleet. Yeah, it was sort of like, Eredin's going to return and be like mortal in our realm again. Nah, he died. So, yeah, things went bad. The journey's survivors landed in the northernmost reaches of the nation of Shenmen. from whence Ophirian Amanandar led her forces north along the Gansto River until they encountered the abandoned city of Kamikobu. The city at the time was being fought over by 12 different bandit lords who all sought sole leadership. Being exhausted from this journey that they had endured, even beyond this, Ophirian Amanandar and the remnants of this army joined an existing alliance of Tian Xia and Taldor and overcame these bandit warlords. Then Amanandar requested permission from these two people, the Tian Xia and the Taldor, to form a new nation in the ruins of Kamikobu. And despite those nations' confusions, they rewarded her for her aid with the formerly anarchic land. So yeah, basically if you look on the map here, you can see that the Tianjin and Ziha is the area to the north, Tianjin is the area to the kind of south. These two other nations were trying to get this anarchic, warlord-controlled land under control. This army that had basically crash-landed helped remove the bandits, and they were like, hey, can we make a nation here? And they're like, you know what? Sure, it's order. And so, yeah. The two other nations just let her control what was this anarchic land. And so she became the land's new governor, named after herself, Amanandar, and renamed Kamikobu to New Opera in 4608. And this officially established a Taldane colony of Amanandar, which celebrated annually the holiday of Founders' Day, also known as Ophiria's Day, on the 7th of Abbats. Okay, cool. We just formed this nation in the middle of Tian Xia because it was a chaotic time for the region. It was the perfect opportunity. They were there. They had been through some shit. You know, interestingly enough, it became a nation. And so it was a Taldane colony connected with them for some time, for about 100 years or so. Basically, the unfortunate part is Ophiria Amandar's goal of revitalizing Taldor through the colony didn't come to fruition. But Amanandar itself did prosper. Its people paid taxes and dealt with Taldane bureaucracy for more than a century, but their complaints became formal petitions following the colony's centennial. Taldor ignored them. This changed when the War of the Crown occurred, which is an adventure path you can play yourself, if you want to play out a version of it, in 4718. Basically, the adventure path was published in 2018. I'll let that go for a second, because that's a test. It's freaking good. It's Thursday. It's Thursday at 6:30. You can drink while that goes. The fire sign. Yeah, it's the Thursday 7:30 test. Anyway, basically, Taldane politics had upended with what had happened when the progressive Princess Eutropia Stavian became the new ruler. You have to keep in mind, up until now, no princess had come in charge of Taldor. It was all princes and male heirs. This is the first female heir, and Taldor has been seen for big changes that have been occurring in it. Using this, basically, Amanandar gained independence on the 23 of Kuthona, or 720 IC for the Tian Xia calendar, and renamed itself Linvarre, after the Tianian word for Lotus and the old Taldane word for kingdom. So basically, it's the Lotus Kingdom. The titles of the kingdom is the Kingdom of the Reborn Lotus. So yes, Linvarre is a combination of two words, Tianian word and a Taldane word. The Lotus associated with rebirth, and basically, yeah. It celebrates its independence as a holiday, the Grand Day of Independence, with fireworks and military parades. Let's talk about geography. I don't have a lot of images, so I'm going to stick with the one we have now for this entire thing here, for a little while here. It's located in the north central of the continent. It has a single port city, Malaru, located on the Sea of Ghosts to the south. a recent expansion of its borders into territory once claimed by Shenmin. The Enlightened River, most often referred to as the Lush River, and also known as the Ganzhou River, flows through the center of the land from Ziha to the Sea of Ghosts. All of their major settlements are located a day's journey from the river. So you can see like they've got that expansion to the south where they've got a port here. Probably the Sea of Ghosts does lead out. And they've got the Sea of Eels on their side there too, which is also like a technically big lake. So, it occupies a land gap between imposing geographical features of the Enlightened Mountains to the north, the Gossamer Mountains, and the Spectral to the south. It has many neighbors. To the north, of course, is Xinha. Northeast is Wanshu. To the east is Kuanlai. To the south, Shimin. To the southwest, Songbai. And to the west, the Elven Kingdom of Jinin. Its highly seasonal climate resembles Taldor's, actually, and features ocean breezes from the Sea of Ghosts and cold mountain winds for the northern mountains. So yes, seasonally, very similar to where they came from. So the Taldanians were basically able to easily adapt. Now let's talk about these cities that we know about in the region before we move on, and I change images. New Opera, of course, is the capital. It's still called that in Linvarre. It's a large city. It was in 7108 IC, which is 4608 AR, basically the time period we know about in comparison to the Tian calendar versus the calendar that most of us are familiar with the Inner Sea region. Yeah. It is positioned near the Alushe River and bathed in its mists. And it blends architecture of both Tianian and Taldane styles. It includes the Ranko Markets of Hawkers and the Okalio Institute of Magical Practice. Smaller but interesting other cities are Funako is one of the many cities there, which is it's home to the nation's elven population, known for its Jinase metalworks and Dawn Silver trade. Funako is not strictly control its population for defensive purposes. However, citizens, like all citizens of Amanandar, were required to serve in the country's military for at least 5 years. It grew rapidly because of the prosperity, and of course that prosperity spread as the Tianian Z continent stabilized after the fall of the big empire there. Malaru is, of course, the port city I mentioned, which was recently an expansion there. It is the ancestral land of the Hagamalu people of the Spectre Wood and Sea of Ghosts, who live in separate communities across the area prior to the arrival of General Ophiria Amanandar and the 8th Army exploration from Taldor. They faced an assault by an undead army of the deposed Bandit Lord, one of the ones that they defeated, and the general claimed the disparate communities under a single name Malaru without their consent. The buildings are constructed by Taldanes seeking opportunities of sea trade, and some have shown growth of fusion between Taldane, Tian, and Tagamaru cultures. Their worship is a combination of ancestor and spirit veneration with Taldane deities and local saints. Communities built around Gothic cathedrals which serve as centers of the community worship. The festivities celebrate the heritage of recreating ancestral traditions in Taldane style, resulting in uniquely expressive aesthetics to their past. Oakham. It's a formerly military outpost, and it's known for its firework production, which is said to have drawn organized criminals from a bunch of other places seeking to sell black powder across neighboring countries. Again, it's also not as controlled as New Opera is when it comes to population. Tudekwa is actually the largest city in Linvarre. The Monastery of Blended Forms, a renowned martial arts retreat inspired by Taldor's Tian-founded Monastery of Seven Forms, is located there. So you have to remember, there's been cultural exchanges. And so Taldor has a Tianian-founded monastery of monastic martial arts and this place has basically a martial arts school inspired by that school of people originally from TNZ. So they went there, they came back from Taldane with a kind of evolved own form, and founded a martial arts school here. It's an interesting, like, juxtaposition of, like, I guess it would be like, for, like, karate, Japanese martial arts. Someone from there settled a karate school in the United States, involved in something really big, and then went back to Japan and formed a new version of that with their own version of karate. It would be like that. I mean, it's a little different because this is a Haldane colony and it's a mixture of cultures. So yeah. That's really kind of an interesting juxtaposition going back and forth with it. And the final city that we know about for big settlements is a large city called Vanessaria. It was founded by Brutus Vanessar and has since been home to multiple generations of the Vanessar family, including General Jai Yi Vanessar, the great-granddaughter, and Linvarre's leader as of 4724. The city's also hosted the Temple of the Eternal and Exquisite Rose, which is the temple to Shellen, the largest one on the continent. So, yeah. Alright. Let's talk about the economy and government. And I'll change my images here to the flag, which this flag is not 100% accurate. I will note here, this is the old flag of Amanandar. The current flag of Linvarre is very similar to this one. The top crown, which originally represented Taldane, has been replaced by a symbol of a golden lotus. Basically, the version of this flag was adopted on the Grand Day of Independence, and that's only the only replacement is the Taldane symbol with the golden lotus flower to acknowledge its history while reducing its colonial influence. So its flag is very similar. This flag is very close to the current one. The Linvarre's economy centers around its large but organized hawker centers, which consolidate shops, production, and cuisine in close proximity. These centers rarely close even overnight, resulting in Linvarre maxim: Taldanes sleep while Tianians wake, but Linvarrans are up 24 hours a day. Because Taldane and Tianzi are like opposite sides of the globe, so it's the entire thing is, well, Taldanes sleep, Tianians wake, but Linvarrans are up all the time. I like to say it. Due to its central position, New Opera is a vital trade city along one of the Imperial Lungwa's most important trade routes. Remember that Lungwa fell apart, but it had big trade routes, and New Opera is right along that. That's why those big countries nearby wanted to remove the bandits to keep the trade route open. As such, the entire province is thought of as a rich breadbasket for the Empire, making it a tempting target for bandits as soon as the Imperial Lungwa fell. That's why they came here. It was a breadbasket. It was a great place. Linvarre's pastures along the Alushe River feed flocks of sheep and goats descended from the 8th Arby stock, produce wool and goat's milk as popular exports. Goat milk from Linvarre is featured in Goka's popular sparkle teas. So yeah, they brought sheep and goats with them, and that's been the big thing there because that's more animals in this region. Taldane main goods also remain popular, and trade of weapons, armor, trinkets, wool, and goat's milk sustain the nation's economy through winters. Rural folk near the Alushe River also supplement their income by working on ferries that haul cargo and transport people between New Opera and Mallory. The colony enforced conscription upon the citizens from age 16 to 45. A practice that has since been abandoned, produced a large population of professional soldiers, and mercenary work remains common by Linvarres. So the entire, putting everybody into the military has gone away, but does mean there's a lot of military in there. So most Linvarrans who leave on mercenary work or as adventurers embark on the fall, spurring a local saying, falling leaves settle on the ground as ardent hearts leave home. Let's talk about the government of Linvarre. Because it's ruled by its last colonial leader, General G.A. Vanessar, who as of 4724, current year, has maintained the colonial era practice of statocracy, which is only military leaders of Taldane heritage consume leadership. These Taldane-blooded rulers were advised by a general staff of advisors open to anyone in the nation. So basically, the top leader, Taldane blooded, but anybody can be of the general staff. Vanessar is the daughter of General Audrey Vanessar, who died in 4720 when GA was 27 years old. GA became the youngest general in history of the nation, and was in the history on the nation the year the nation declared its independence. So basically, she took over and was there when the independence was declared. She is responsible for rescinding the Amanandar's policy of conscription and replacing it with a compulsory education in reading, writing, mathematics, and history of both Taldor and Linvarre until the age of 13. Each day also includes an hour of physical activity, which often centers around the rondelro fighting style of Taldane nobles and the Tian and Quadrian techniques of the Order of the Solemn Fist. So yeah, it's until you're 13, there's education in place in the country instead of the conscription, which does involve a fighting style of Taldane nobles and martial arts for some physical activity during the day. The young nation's leader has also promoted Linvarrans who lack Taldane blood, opened talks with the Tagamaru, remember those people that I said were kind of pushed together into a city, and began efforts to transition the nation to democratic rule. All propositions which have favorable comparisons to Taldor's reforms by the princess, or complaints that such changes could bring ruin to the nation. They've had things. They've compared her to the reformists, basically, or that it could bring ruin, you know. It's 50-50 where the people believe that. She's going to destroy the nation. She's just like... Or they love her because she's like the princess who's helping to reinvigorate and reform Taldor to a new modern nation. She's like that, or that because she's like that, she's going to destroy the city. She is advised by Lieutenant General Genisu Barisu, who leads the nation's lion-bladed inspired spy organization known as the Liger Spears, and her peaceful cousin, Kindred Vanessar, of the Quizong Society of the Five Spoken Wheel. Her rule is chiefly opposed by Major General Kestrel Zentria and her father, General Staff Member Stefano Zentria, both of the Zentria family. They're traditionalists that trace their lineage back to Taldane predecessors, the Principality of Taldis, and Kestrel Zentria was a colleague of Jinneh's who turned rival, then opponent, as Jinneh rapidly climbed the nation's military ranks. So, if you're going to look at the culture of this place, well, that's interesting because it combines a lot of elements of both Taldane and Tian inside it. I mean, its flag, its national anthem were both designed to highlight its multiculturalism. And with its leader, the daughter of a Tianian woman and a father of both Tian Shu and Tianhua heritages, a Chaldean woman. So, yeah, her mother was Chaldean, and her father was of two different Tianian heritages. The current general in charge of the nation is incredibly multicultural. Lion dances inspired by Taldan lineal iconography are performed in guises that resemble the six-eyed Taldan Gorgusint, or the deity Dracovin, who is sometimes depicted as a cross between a lion and a tiger. Dragon boat laces in Linvarre feature boasts with the face of Avastian dragons, as well as Taldor's dragon flag. The Taldane coat of arms, dueling card game pastime, which features the many faces of Taldor heraldry, was introduced to locals by the 8th Army and adapted to use the flags of the successor states of Linvarre in Linvarre and stuff. So it's sort of like they're this like multiculturalism that they brought in this Taldane stuff and adapted it to Tianian stuff, and it's a really interesting nation because of that, the evolution of it. And that is a Rondello fighter from Linvarre. Remember I said Rondarlu is practiced as part of the physical activity hour that these students get. The mandatory education you get until you're 13. You practice some fighting stuff. So Linvarre is unique in all of Tianzi because it's basically where Haldanian ethnicity people live in numbers. It is the most common ethnicity next to the Tian Xia people, and beyond humans, the place is also a home to a significant population of Celestial Touched, Samarasins, Elves, and Tengu. The latter two of which are Linvarre's fastest growing population. So there's a fast growing population of Tengu and Elves in the nation. And 2/3 of the nation are of mixed ancestry after this 120 so years. So it means, at this point in time, the majority of people here are both ancestry. 2/3 of them. As expected, because of a heavy Taldor influence, many gods worshipped in Linvarre are deities popular in Taldor, and Avastin. Abadar, the god of walls and ditches, Irori, the light one, Faraz, mother of souls, Shellin, who's the temple I mentioned. Linvarre and Shellenites also celebrate Crystal Hoon, a festive winter holiday, while Abadarans from the farm to the hawker center celebrate the autumn harvest, and on the holidays, Market Door. They also worship deities common in Tian Xia, such as Lady Jingzi or Chizuru, and in rural areas, Bakeho. So yeah. And keep in mind that, yeah. Yeah. Sorry. And I think that's probably a great place to leave it there. I was just, I saw the date and it said it was under AR, and really the date should be IC. Mistakes are made and information is made in my notes and stuff like that. But yeah, hey, look at that. We've talked about Linvarre. And it's a really cool nation in the middle of Tian Xia. And I think that's the important part about it when we talk about it, is it's smack dab in the middle of the continent. It really is. It's a place that, kind of figuring out how the army expedition got here, I mean, it was storms and stuff, they blew them off, of course. They basically had to land after they were so devastated by Eridan's death, because things changed all of a sudden. While it didn't revitalize Taldor, Taldor needed the changes that it's gotten now in the War of the Crown to face a possibility of revitalization and changes that it needed. Its old ways were not going to work anymore. We've seen that its great empire collapsed. Basically, it very much was like a Rome situation, where it conquered a large area and now it was collapsing. And sending people here wasn't going to happen. And certainly speaking, these people here formed their own nation. And that was the thing, is they formed their own nation. They're like, we're calling it Taldor. But were they? They kind of were, but they really weren't. And that's why after a century, they were like, things are changing. We can be independent. We can be something new. We're already something new. We're already our own nation with our own identity that's combining basically East and West that has existed for 100 years. They've developed it over this 100 years. And it's this interesting place where, certainly if you are someone from the Inner Sea region and coming to Tian Xia, this might be a little bit more familiar for you to start out with before you travel to places which are very different. Certainly speaking, people in the Inner Sea region are used to different. I mean, there's plenty of very unique and interesting cultures, and you can experience a lot of them traveling, but this is on the other side of the world, the other side of the globe, and it's a difficult journey to get there. And getting there does show you something completely different. And I do want to eventually talk about more Tian Xia places, as we do have the World Guide now. But this one we have a lot of information on, so I decided we'll start with the nations that have already this deep history because of connections to other stories and stuff like that. They're great to talk about. This one had that. So I hope you enjoyed learning about it, and it's a really cool nation that, some adventures could easily be in, or you could easily travel to, because of connections to various places in the Inner Sea. But I'll leave it here for today. If you want to check out more of my stuff when I'm live, of course, you can always check it out over on Twitch on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. Saturday's backup day. It's usually early to mid-afternoon. Sometimes moving around because of life schedules and I'm doing stuff. But I talk about all kinds of tabletop topics. They go up on YouTube. Live show, Pathfinder First Edition, Crimson Queen, on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. EST. And Saturdays at 6 is Discussing Tabletop, where we talk about news of the week and different special topics. Always check all those out. If you can't live, over on YouTube, please, thank you. Check out all my stuff. It's really great, and I hope you all enjoy it. I have social media link below, and I think that's all my shout-outs. I try to get these outros with throwing out my, I'm doing all these stuff. You should really check it out. But, I just want to, say to you guys here, I appreciate all of you who enjoy my content and check my stuff out and check out more. But you know what? Until the next time, if you guys join me, whether you're live, if you guys stick around for a little while, or joining me over on YouTube, I bid all of you out there a deep and heartfelt farewell.